we sleep, the guardians of the night take to the streets, having said goodbye to those they love. Each other knowing they may never say these words again, they face the evil that we run from. They dedicate their lives to those that would hate them because they wear the badge. They wear the badge not for the glory or recognition, but because they were born to honor the thin blue line. This is the LEO First Podcast. We'll talk to the men and women in law enforcement, those that have retired, and anyone who's impacted by law enforcement. We'll peel back the curtain, and you'll get the real stories. The good, the bad, and the ugly. Every law enforcement officer has a story to tell. Get ready to hear from the men and women who put their lives on the line every day for their communities and their country. Welcome to the LEO First Podcast. Now, here's your host, Michael Laidler.
Hey everybody, it's Michael Laidler, your host of the LEO First Podcast, and today I'm in Detroit, Michigan at the Impact 11 Boot Camp. Now, you're going to see me in another room as usual because you know I love this traveling podcast that I do. And I met our guest literally yesterday, and I will tell you, if you look at him right now, especially if you're watching the video version, what you could tell is that he does have that prototypical law enforcement look. So out of my heart and my little bit of extrovert personality, I was like, you know what? Let me go introduce myself to him. And then when I did, come to find out, he does have a past in law enforcement. So today we have Jeff Marr with us. He spent 8 years in law enforcement in Colorado, right outside of Denver. And now he's doing construction. But the cool part about it, he's also a speaker, kind of like myself. Well, not kind of like myself. I am a speaker. I can't say kind of because we are speakers. True. And that's how we're meeting. And one of the things that I love to see, especially in the law enforcement industry and going beyond, is you never know who you're going to meet, especially on your journey. So one of the things that was even more cool was that when I found out what his Instagram handle was, and I'll make sure it's in the notes, but also at the end, but it's called The Bearded Bodybuilder. Come on, guys. Look at that beard. You see my beard. You guys have seen me in the past. You know I can't even grow facial hair right here, so I can never get an amazing looking beard. I even heard people walking by complimenting him. But make sure if you haven't followed him, you reach out. And even if you send him a message and say, hey, Jeff, we love your beard, that'll be dear to my heart. And maybe put hashtag podcast, and that way we can kind of drive people to him. But you guys know one of the best part about being a speaker, podcast host, or even just being around others is we get to connect and hear people's story. And part of the law enforcement or the LEO First Podcast is how do we humanize any part of our lives? And we show not just the viewers, but people that may have certain opinions about law enforcement. How do we show that we're just people? It's just that we've been in and continue to be in different high stress environments, whether it's law enforcement, construction, speaking. And we just want everybody to kind of know that we're just regular people. So that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about some of Jeff's journeys and some of the things he's doing nowadays, and really just kind of unpack and, I guess, unlayer, if that's really a word, some of the things that he has gone through and what brings him to this amazing day here in Detroit. So, Jeff, what do you want to talk about today?
About anything.
Well, it's your stage right now because people are listening.
Yeah, like you said, history in law enforcement. I spent 8 years. I was a dispatcher a couple years before that.
Wow, okay.
So just always knew from the time I was in third grade, we were given the assignment of what do you want to be when you grow up, and it was either a cop or a paramedic because they had lights on their vehicle. And the cops got the gun, so I was like, I'm going to go with cop.
Yeah.
And I always share that story because ultimately it really just ingrains in me. I always knew I was called to help people. You know, like that's what I was put on earth to do, is help people. And being a cop was a great way of doing that. We can get into that part of the story now. I lost my career, bad decisions off duty.
We'll be honest. I mean, because that's the part that sometimes we think, and even everybody thinks that because you're in law enforcement, you can't make mistakes. But then they don't just think that; they think that you can't recover from them. Right. And obviously, if you're sitting here, you're alive. I mean, so you recover. I mean, I'm sure you had your ups and downs. That's again, we all do. But sometimes there might be somewhere on here right now that's going through a bad decision that they made that they're wondering right now if it's worth it to stay alive for another day. And that's the kind of things that I love to bring out in people. It's like, well, yes, I had my dark days, which it sounds like you're going to tell us about that. So tell us, I mean, you tell us how much you want us to know about that.
I'm an open book.
Go ahead.
And I share all the time on social media too about all this. But yeah, so I became a cop right at 21. I actually timed it out to where I graduated the academy 2 weeks before I turned 21.
Wow.
So yeah, I just knew that's what I wanted to do. And I had a couple kids by that. I had my first daughter when I was 17. Right before my senior year of high school.
You started early. Yeah, we call that starting early. Yeah.
I missed a couple 2-a-day practices in the hospital having a baby, and my coach was like, "Hey, you got to get back to practice, man."
Well, sir, I got a little baby. I'm just saying, I'm trying to be there.
Yeah. So anyway, I mean, I grew up quick, right? So at 21, where I look at my kids now who are 21 and around that age, and I'm like, holy cow. The first death call I went to was a elderly woman got ran over by a bus, and I was underneath the bus, and just watched. Anybody that's seen somebody die knows, you just watch that soul life drain out of somebody. And at 21, nobody's prepared for that. And at that time, there was nothing in law enforcement to even help you cope with that. And so it doesn't matter. I went home, got in the shower, and cried for a while, and then that was it. Go back to work the next day and try to act like it didn't happen. So, and ultimately, I mean, I share that because when I really reflect on my career and the combined trauma that happened, it's all of those things just added up at the end and just to a big blowout. So yeah, I have 7 kids now, but yeah, so as I'm going through my career.
Whoa.
All the children.
We're going to pause this at not the whole, we're not going to stop the recording, but I want to make sure people hear this was not a technical error.
No.
You said, and whether they're watching the video or listening to audio, you said 7, like after 6 before 8.
Correct.
Okay, 7 kids. Okay, sorry, keep going. Sorry, that I wanted to make sure we all heard that. Okay,
Yeah.
which is
7.
impressive. I have
7.
1, and I get worked up by 1, so 7 definitely gets real.
Well, after 3, it's all the same. So
I have heard similar statements.
Yeah.
Yeah, they said once you just give them, they just kind of all blend in at that point.
yeah, and I mean, which one do you get rid of? When you start having more, all right, get in the truck.
Yeah.
So anyway, yeah, through my 8 years, having a family, going through all this stuff, and just. I do, to what you said, people don't understand a lot. Like, cops are humans too.
Yeah.
So I was going through stuff at home. Most cops, marriage ends in divorce. Mine was going through a divorce.
I've been through a divorce too, don't I? I'm with you. Yes, in law enforcement, I understand. And it sucks.
It does, but yeah, going through divorce, having an affair, had that, stress on my plate, which I brought, self-induced for sure. And I started struggling with alcohol when I turned about 25, 26. So after 4 or 5 years in law enforcement, is where I really found alcohol as my whoopee.
Over 30% of police officers have a problem drinking behavior. So that doesn't I mean, it's not uncommon.
Dude, if it was from my research, I'd say 100% because that's all I hung out with, right? Was the other cops that drank. But so just this thing started to unravel for me. It's family stuff at home. It's on the job traumas that were happening. It's my battle with depression and suicidal ideation, which I've dealt with since the time I was little. And actually, the funny part about that is I did CIT training, which my sergeant sent me to because I didn't want to go. Yeah. And for anybody that doesn't know, it's crisis intervention team training. Correct. It's how do you talk to somebody dealing with the mental health crisis. And correct. It's really touchy-feely, right? Hey, we're here to help, and it's not guns out and breaking up fights and the cool stuff that I wanted to do.
And law enforcement, actually, we started doing CIT before we start working on ourselves. So we were being taught, how to now handle the public even more, but we still weren't doing CIT for ourselves, which is changing nowadays. But even like you said back then, you were now learning how to still handle people's problems more than you were even considering looking at yours yet. But yeah,
for sure, and that kind of ties into the whole thing too. But so we're going through the chapter on depression, and as we're reading and defining what somebody has who has depression, I was like, oh shit, I have depression.
Yeah, you have all,
And my very next thought was nobody can find out because I'll lose my career.
Correct.
So it wasn't I have depression, I should go talk to somebody, I need some help, I need to figure out how to deal with this. It was, I better sweep that under the rug, nobody can find out.
Correct.
And so that, just all this stuff just accumulates. So New Year's Eve in 2009, I had we had a call of an 18-month-old. Dad couldn't wake him up from a nap, so we go there. Dad's got him on the bed trying to do CPR. It's not going to work. We put him on the floor. Yeah. My partner's doing compressions. I have the mask on his face and I can't get it to seal, so I ended up having to do mouth to mouth.
Correct.
Which I've done CPR 14 times. Saved 2 people. It's not great odds, but I've never done mouth to mouth because they're people, right? This is a baby. Yeah. So I did mouth to mouth, and that just blew up my head. I mean, the whole.
Well, remember, you're not going to ever forget that, no matter what.
One of my 6th oldest child. Yeah, number 6 in line.
I was trying to count this. Yeah. Yes, I was trying to math.
Yeah, he was the same exact age when this happened. So it it blew up my mind. And so I always tell people it's not a matter of if, it's when. And that was the call. And so from then, I just started drinking a whole lot more. And everybody from the chief down told me, hey, we have help. You can go talk to somebody. And I'm like, what are they going to do?
Yeah. Well, especially like you said, even back then, I mean, it's, and if you go seek help, especially back then,
right.
what is everybody else going to say at that point?
Exactly.
The chief may, and like I said, I don't know your chief, and I don't, it doesn't really matter, but you don't know what the real perception is going to be. Once you say, oh, I'm going to initiate this process.
Yeah. Yeah, and even, I mean, my chief there, I mean, I believe he was sincere, and I believe everybody was, but we still, it was never told it's okay to be vulnerable, it's okay to be weak, it's okay to lose. That's never the mentality as a cop, like you win. No. That's all you know is to win. That's how you go home.
Correct.
So the thing that really blew up my mind, though, was a week later, I'm walking through the hall, and one of the detectives says, hey, sorry about that call, I heard about it's got to be rough, let me know if you need anything, blah, blah, blah. And then I said, I'm fine, whatever, because
we lie
to everybody.
Yeah.
And she said, I was going through the case, so I don't see any pictures of the crime scene. And as soon as she said that, man, my head was just like, oh, shit.
Yeah.
Like, we handled it as a medical assist, and that's it. We didn't process anything. We didn't take pictures of anything.
Well, I mean, you were just, you were there as what most patrol officers that are watching, like, hey, my job is to come try to save the life. That's all. I'm not here to call in evidence recovery or call in somebody else. Like, once I'm done trying to save a baby's life, especially in your case with mouth to mouth, I mean, that's all I'm doing. That's my focus.
Right. And I mean, to the point we loaded him into the ambulance, I got dispatched to a cold hit and run right away. So I'm off to the next thing, So not even time to process. As a matter of fact, on the way to that, my partner sent me a message on the MDT, just said, you okay? And I started typing back, I'm fine, whatever. And then I deleted all of it and just said no.
Yeah.
Because I wasn't.
Correct.
That should have been a sign.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it was definitely,
if anybody's going through things and you start to see any repetition or patterns, like if I can help, that's my whole thing. Like I'll share my story because I want somebody else to not.
Correct. Yeah.
So yeah, when you see signs, I would say if you think you need help, you do.
Yeah.
The second you think you need help, your body's telling you, you need to do something.
And if there's even an ounce that thought go seek it.
Doesn't mean you're broken, doesn't mean you can't be fixed, doesn't mean you're screwed. It just means, hey, we're human. We're not supposed to see the stuff we see. We're not built that way.
Correct.
So anyway, there was nothing on scene to show that there was anything, right? Yeah. But that accumulated with the fact that we went to the memorial service. This baby had a disease. He was going to die eventually.
Correct.
But there was like 100 first responders there, from EMTs to firefighters to the community, just people that had been around because the baby was from the time he was 6 months old having seizures and going through it. And there's 4 of us cops that went there, and the whole time we don't see his dad anywhere. We're leaving finally, and his dad comes around the corner, and all he said to us is, I hope I never see you guys again. And I was like, at the time, right, this is before the detective talked to me, and at that time I was like, that's pretty messed up. Like, I've had nightmares for the last few days because of this. And he said, well, I know where you guys hide behind that stop sign, so I always make sure I stop. And then that was it, right? Like, no thank you, no. The mom was crying, gave us hugs, beside herself. He was just like cold. And so it was a few days after that, the detective said what she did to me, and I was just like, his dad killed him.
Yeah.
And the detective told me, she said, the insurance was changing on the 1st of January because it was a new year, and just a bunch of stuff. Like they pulled the plug at 11:30 at night within like 2-3 hours of him being in the hospital.
Correct.
Because we got a heartbeat, obviously. You give somebody enough medicine, they get a heartbeat. Yeah. So he had a rhythm when he got to the hospital, but they pulled the plug. And so anyway, it was really that messed with my head more than anything. Like I didn't do my job.
That makes sense.
And I let somebody get away with murder. And so, from there, just spiraled, right? All the drinking. I was a motor cop, and I ended up getting hurt, so I was on light duty. I'm in records, so you go from being like, I'm like,
top dog,
I want to be in the shit, right? Like, if something's going down, I'm the dude you want there. Like, let's get it done, to filing records. So my mental status was messed up. I had ended up dating a dispatcher while I'm still going through a divorce, and I have 6 kids at this time, not all 7, but just a lot of stuff going on. So her and I ended up getting into it a few different times, just arguing, and things got out of hand. And there was one night that I was in my truck. Her and I got into an argument, so I went to my truck. I had my duffel bag with my gun. Always have my gun with me because you're a cop.
And my we take it to the bathroom. In our house.
Right. 100%. You just got your gun.
Yeah.
And my bottle of Jameson. Because that's what I was doing. And I'm sitting in my truck listening to music. I was in the back seat.
Try to do the responsibility.
I'm past the statute of limitations. You can't give me DUI now. Anyway, but I was in the back seat, right? And just listening to music, and everything just went dark for me. And all I heard over and over in my head was come home. And I knew what that meant in my head, you know. Like, I'm depressed. I don't want to be here. I hate life. I suck. I can't save a baby. Like all this stuff.
Everything.
Can't save my family. I'm a bad husband. I'm a bad dad. Like all this stuff to where I'm just seeing like black, like everything tunnel vision. I see one little light and I just hear come home, come home, come home. So I take my gun out, have it to my head, start pulling the trigger, and a voice yelled no. Like, I'm by myself in my truck, music going, and something yelled.
Thank goodness, thank goodness, whatever that was.
Right. Yeah. So snap me out of it. I go back inside the apartment, ask her for help, and she was really cold about it. Whatever, like didn't end up getting help. But it was like the next day, you know, and we were talking, whatever, and some other people at the department knew about it, but everybody was just like, "What do we do?" Yeah. You know, like nobody really experienced it. So nothing happened, but I just remember over and over thinking, as long as nobody finds out, I'm okay. Yeah. And instead of, holy fuck, I almost killed myself.
Yeah, that's a big. I can always get a job, but I can't always get another life.
Right.
Yeah, we only have one life. Right. People don't know you only have one life.
100%. And that's just how like entrenched I was in the whole thing, though. And beyond that, before I went on light duty, I had a whole plan on how I was going to wreck my patrol car. I know what wall I was going to hit off the freeway, you know, at what speed. I'm an accident reconstructionist. Like I know how I have to hit it, what angle. So I could go out as a hero, right? Like the community wouldn't know. My kids wouldn't know. I knew, but. Correct. And so going on light duty saved my life. That night in the truck, you know, I say God saved my life. Yeah. Has a plan for me. And so it was a week after that. Again, her and I got into arguments, blah, blah, blah. There was a lot of alcohol involved. I ended up pushing her a couple times. I get arrested for domestic violence. Correct. There goes my whole career. Correct. And again, like looking back on it, because I was so far gone and I wasn't getting help and I was just being really destructive, I wouldn't be alive today had that not happened. Correct. Sometimes nobody wants to get arrested. I promise you that. But sometimes but it will slow you down. Like it slows. Like even the most hardened criminal that commits crime, like getting arrested does slow you down or whatever you're doing. Not doesn't mean it's always going to stop. Obviously, you stopped in that case, but it doesn't mean you're going to stop. But it does make you reset your thinking. Yeah. Now, I'm not saying anybody volunteer to get arrested. Don't do it. But we're just saying. The whole thing is like, if there's a problem, there is. Yeah. Yeah. Like let's do something about it before you get to this point. You know, I tell cops all the time. Like you can get burnt out, you can not be happy where you are, whatever. Go out on your terms, you know. Quit. Yes. Quit. Don't get fired. There's gonna be another job. You can always go back as long as you go out the right way. And like don't push it to the point that you're just screwed. I can never be a cop again in this country. Yeah, but I mean, it might work out better because I know you talked about your calling earlier, but sometimes you never know, and that's why I would never be a street cop again because I don't know what the first call of service I will get because you can't control that. Right. You can go through the whole. Let's just say that your record was wiped and you're now eligible to become an officer anywhere, any agency, state, local, federal, whatever. But then that first call, let's say it's another baby death call. Right. Is it just going to snap you back in? Like it's like sometimes we want something, but that doesn't mean we need something. For sure. And maybe you not getting into that, and maybe being where you're at now is even a better calling than what you were previously thinking. Absolutely. I mean, I agree with you there. Yeah. You know what I try to do with my speaking and coaching too, and having a heart to reach back out to the law enforcement community, is the fact that when you're a cop, you're a helper, right? Mm-hmm. Like some people say heroes. We worked with enough cops that were like, I don't know how you got hired. I'm never going to call you a hero, like just because you put a badge on, right? Yeah. So I actually was talking to a mentor, and we really reframed a lot of that to say helpers. Like every cop's a helper. Yeah, absolutely. Like, I don't care. Even the worst cop out there does it because they want to help. That's true. And, time and complacency and all this stuff turns people angry and sour towards their job and what they're doing. But to get into it, you're a helper, right? And so really what I want to do is heal the helpers. I want to help the helpers. So for sure, when you say that I had a higher calling, I do agree. Yeah. One of the hardest parts though, and again, something I try to caution people on is that identity. From the time I was 21 years old, I'm a cop. Yeah. You listen to me. You do what I say. Yes. It does not translate well into personal relationships. If there's 2 divorces and a domestic violence, like I can attest to that. Yeah. But it's real. Right. And that's like, it's ingrained in you. And as a 21-year-old man, boy, and you're still psychologically developing, like that's what's ingrained in you, and you have to do that so you can go home at night. Yeah. So really it's just a matter of you got to take all that in, but then understand at the end of the day it's a job, and you can't own the identity, because it took me 10 years after losing my career to finally be like, There's something else. Correct. Right? There's more to life. It took even 4 years after that for me to finally quit drinking, or 3 years after that to finally quit drinking alcohol completely.
Yeah.
But like, if you're so ingrained in it, and a lot of military people struggle with it too.
Absolutely.
Because when you're at war with your team and your platoon or
combat, whatever.
I wasn't in the military, so like I don't know all the terms, but like, even as cops, like that's your team.
Yeah.
And I went from, I had a department of 45 people. The night I got arrested, the next day, one person reached out. So even there, like you feel like you're willing to give your life up. I lost throughout my career so many moments with my kids and holidays and birthdays and events and all this because I was the best cop, right? Like I'm gonna show up to work, I'm gonna get stuff done. And I love being a cop, loved it. I could find stuff, and then I wasn't the dude that got picked on and like wanted to pick on other people. I just loved it. Like I was a cop's cop, So
well, that's why I was able to pick you out yesterday. Yes, because you're definitely a cop's cop. We know. If anybody watched the video, you could tell. Yes, you're a cop's cop.
And that's one of the things too, because like you don't need the badge either. Like I'm always that guy. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Like if something goes down, I'm gonna respond.
Oh, it's game on. Yeah. You're ready. We're always on standby.
Yeah. I hear a loud noise in the store, and I'm like,
we're looking around.
Take this clothes rack and go find whoever's got that loud noise, right?
Correct. Yeah.
So like you don't need the badge to have that mentality and just help people and be there. And even that, I wonder how many situations just my presence being around something has prevented other things from happening. So it's not anything that I take for granted anymore or that I'm sad over anymore. And it takes growth, but I only really share that to be like, just understand it's a job. And just the same way, like if you passed away or if you quit, they'll replace you tomorrow. They will no matter what.
Yeah. Well, no matter what. Yeah. I mean, they have to have people.
They have to. Yeah.
Yeah. It's not personal. It's not personal.
Right. And any business does, and that's business.
Yeah.
And so, like, I tell people for any job, like whether it's a cop or like any job, like put your family first, put yourself first, then put your family, and make sure that you take care of everything. Because if something happens, they'll replace you. You can't replace you.
I think you read my book already. I know you have it, but that's a lot of stuff I talk about. But greatness beyond the badge when it comes to self-awareness.
Yeah.
One of the things terms I use is dissonance, and that's like when you don't have like a harmonious balance between like life and work. And one of the very first things I tell people to remedy that is put yourself first. Not in a you're the only person that counts, but if you're going to be good for your family, you have to grow yourself and you have to recognize things. Especially in your case where you have 7 kids, like if you're going to be the best father to 7 children, and then a girlfriend or a spouse, you have to be all there. But it starts with doing your internal assessment. So with all of that, now that you're coming into the speaking world even more, if people are looking to book you or find you, or they're going to want to hear more about your story, because I can tell you some of my viewers on here, like they're going through it, they are, because when I speak, they tell me. So what are some ways people can find you if they're looking for you?
Yeah, so my Instagram, like you said, that handle, The Bearded Bodybuilder. I have my website. My coaching company is called Me Versus Me.
No, Me Versus Me. Okay, I like that.
Because that goes to like the whole battle, right? Like we got to fix ourselves first.
Yeah.
We can't show up for anybody else. So it's mevme.org.
Okay.
And otherwise, my last name's Marr. Facebook, you can look me up.
You said LinkedIn. You said you're building your LinkedIn right now as well.
LinkedIn too.
Yeah. And I don't want to say this, but I'm gonna say this. I heard Facebook's for old people, so we both have Facebook. Yeah. But I enjoy it. I'm still on it. I will post on it probably today. But needless to say, there's several ways you can find you, whether it's IG, LinkedIn. You said Facebook, and then mevme.org. Me versus me. Yeah. So. With all of
Google
that,
my name and my phone number's out there too.
Hey, well,
if you need to get hold of me.
That's why I tell people, they're like, you give your number out, and all law enforcement, it goes against all of our natural tendencies. I was just like, if somebody really wants us in this era, like now, this isn't the 90s or the early 2000s. Like people are gonna find you. Like there's all types of software that will break everything. Like, well, we don't want to make it easy. I said if somebody really wants Michael Layler or Jeff Marr that bad, they're going to find us. Like it doesn't make a difference. So with that said, what are some final words you have for the viewers?
I just feel like probably the way that this whole thing went, again, just reiterating, if you think there's a problem, there is, get some help. Even if you don't tell anybody else, get some help. I would say, piggybacking off of what you said, there's a healthy selfish, right? Like you need to show up for you or else you can't show up for anybody else. If you need personal days, if you need mental health day, if you need whatever.
They're real.
You have to be selfish, otherwise you won't be around.
Yeah.
I think that's probably the 2 takeaways I would say.
And I agree with you. And the fact that one of the things I really wanted to highlight, all the things you said, all the story you went through, it's not just that it's real, but you're here today. So 100%. You went through a lot, and there's some people that are probably watching right now that are kind of questioning their place in this world. if you don't like your organization or you're struggling because you went to a bad call, there's other avenues out there. You have a construction business, now you're in the speaker's world. Like, there's things you can do that make you happy. So the fact that you shared that, I think you guys really need to pay attention to that, because sometimes we see one agency, one organization, one industry, and that's all we identify ourselves with.
Well, that's the identity thing, right?
Yeah.
Like, there's a whole world outside of cops.
It is.
I know you're ingrained in it because that's your family.
Yeah.
There's a whole world outside of it. And it's better for you to find that world than you to be forced to go get that world.
And you can find it anytime. And I don't want any viewer that loves law enforcement to leave it. I just want people to know that if you're to that point to where you're burned out, or you're so stressed that you just want to take your life, or you just want to fight somebody, or you want to do something that's a negative coping mechanism, just leave.
Dude, there's seasons, right? You leave for a season and go back. You can only do that when it's under you, when you're the one controlling it.
Yeah, and we've seen officers leave. I had somebody recently. It's a woman. She's out of the Denver area too, and she left law enforcement because something traumatic happened, and then she just got back into it about a year or two ago. Yeah. But that's what I'm saying. But she left on her own terms because she realized what happened was going to eventually cause her to do something negative. But she was like, you know what? I need to step back. She's back in it, and I think she's like a supervisor. So
that's admirable.
That's what I'm saying. Like you can, like you said, it's better. I will have more respect for somebody that comes in and out versus someone that suffers and then does something bad to themselves or somebody else.
100%.
So
yeah, man. If I could just say real quick too,
go
on
ahead.
that note, you know, if you're thinking about hurting yourself or ending your life, I mean, if you're here, there's a reason you're here. We still have a purpose. So
yeah,
I agree. Keep pushing forward. We can figure that out.
Yeah, I agree. So guys, I know you love this episode, and especially the fact that we're here at Impact 11. Like I said, Jeff and I just met. I mean, technically we probably saw each other on Sunday, but we didn't really. I initiated the conversation on Monday because I saw him looking like a grunt style on promo video walking around here. But I love the fact that law enforcement is everywhere. We can connect everywhere, and then we can find places like Impact 11 that allows us to do a podcast. Because actually, when I brought it up earlier today, our Ivy Gustafson, who's a VP over like membership, and she helps with like community building, I was like, do you think there's a way I could do a podcast in one of the back rooms? And she just looked at me like, you know what? That's a good idea. So needless to say, there's people even outside of our industry that love what we do. Because I said, hey, my background law enforcement, his background's law enforcement. We just want to do a podcast. She was like, okay, I got the room. That's why we got the sign up here, because we really wanted to share something else wherever we're at. So if you're, once again, wherever you're at in your life, remember there's always more, there's always plus, and if you ever need anything, you have both Jeff and I. You know you have me, but now you have somebody else, and make sure you follow, like, and subscribe him. Get onto his IG, and trust me, you know I'm gonna shoot you guys some reels once I edit this video, but be ready because we wanna give you as many resources as we can. And if you're looking for a speaker, Jeff's coming out to the lane, whether it's within law enforcement or out, but we always wanna make sure we give people opportunities to share our story, because I will personally tell you, and I speak anywhere from 15 to 20 conferences a year, your story resonates with a lot, and we'll talk about that offline. We don't need to tell you all the business strategies, but if y'all want to know business strategies, you can DM either of us, we can get you there. But regardless, once again, Jeff, thank you for being on here, thank you all for either listening and tuning in, or just if you just watched it on the video, what that might be. But once again, the whole goal is to humanize the badge and to provide resources and provide real life experiences from people that have done it. So once again, thank you guys, and be safe.
You've been listening to the LEO First Podcast. Michael has been in law enforcement since 2005. He's worked for 3 law enforcement agencies in 3 different states. He's a professional speaker who travels the country teaching about leadership development and self-awareness. And he's the author of a book called Greatness Beyond the Badge: The 3 Key Principles for Self-Awareness. It's Michael's passion to bring law enforcement members' stories to the front, so you get the real and raw take. We hope you've enjoyed the show. Make sure to like, rate, and review. And we'll be back soon. But in the meantime, hook up with Michael on YouTube, Instagram, and LinkedIn at Michael Laidler, on Twitter at Michael A. Laidler, on Facebook at Michael Laidler Leadership. Send an email to michael@michaellaidler.com and hit the website at michaellaidler.com. See you next time on the LEO First Podcast.
Find vehicles riding in